To another edition of the Magic Latest podcast where we discuss everything Orlando Magic basketball. I'm your host, Jalon Dixon, and today we got a couple of things to get into. But before we get started, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily Orlando Magic content. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and with the NBA season less than 30 days away, you want to be tapped in, as this is going to be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. So hit that post notification bell so you always know when we're dropping new videos, because you're going to want to be tapped into every single update for one of the best teams coming up in the NBA right now. So, with that all being said, let's get into today's episode. And we are focusing on the chirping around camp. Once again, with the NBA preseason picking up this upcoming weekend, we are locked into the camp conversations. And one of the biggest conversations in Orlando Magic camp right now surrounds Desmond Bane, of course, the newest and most high-profile acquisition of the Orlando Magic this past summer. And the focus around Desmond Bane is the fact that he is already in the early stages of summer camp starting to show signs of having an influence on this Orlando Magic offense. From Franz Wagner, he says, you can already feel how he's going to change the trajectory of this team and how we are going to play and set a good example. How he goes about his work as well, but especially offensively, I think it's going to change quite a bit how we play. Early and often impact from Desmond Bane. That is so important. Being able to feel his presence, feel his influence, understand where he wants to be, understand how he's able to imprint his impact on this offense. All of those things are going to be really important. We're not going to see this in full effect until we get Jalen Suggs in fully healthy, and we'll talk about him a little bit later. But between him and, of course, seeing this team on the floor, preseason will be a really strong indication of just being able to see certain things this Orlando Magic team wants to do with Desmond Bane at the helm at that secondary guard position. But Desmond Bane's influence on this offense early and often is so impactful because of the fact that he is a guy that, again, this Orlando Magic team has to ingratiate. I've said it on the podcast a handful of times as we've gotten closer to camp, that this team needs to embrace this guy as more than just the cherry on top option to add to their young squad to help put them into the next tier of Eastern Conference contender. Desmond Bane is a guy that if this team wants to be competitive long term as a perennial playoff team, they have to view him as a guy that elevates them alongside Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero in a way that he has his own influence on the offense, not simply just some cog in the system that's added next to Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero. You don't turn Desmond Bane into a pick and pop 3-point shooter at the guard position. You don't turn Desmond Bane into a glorified Duncan Robinson spot up 3-point shooter because you have Paulo and Franz. You don't. That's one of those things that I believe. I remember when Paul George played for the LA Clippers. He mentioned that one of the biggest things that he had an issue with Doc Rivers once upon a time was the fact that he felt like Doc Rivers tried to turn him into JJ Redick, and it kind of minimized the functionality that he had on a team where A, he's a secondary option next to Kawhi Leonard, and B, this is a ball handling forward that tends to operate best with the ball in his hands. And instead, you're trying to turn him into like a corner three specialist or a guy who operates mainly off of catch and shoot threes. And that's not simply his game, or at least that's a limitation of what his game can be. You do not want to limit what Desmond Bane can be as an offensive option next to Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero. You simply want to ingratiate what his impact is by taking his skill set and building upon that with the guys that you have. So knowing that he's already kind of initiating himself as a guy that you need to respect his skill set as a former 20-point per game scorer, viewing him as more than just simply a guy who adds to their three-point shooting acumen is a grand step for this team, given the fact that I know a lot of the conversations will be around Paulo Banchero, Franz Wagner taking steps in a different direction. And that's one of those things where, again, this team can build in a real way. All right. Let's talk about the rookies. The rookies are gaining real momentum early already. Paulo Banchero talking about Noah Penda says, I like him a lot. He's pretty quiet. He's pretty quiet as a person, but his game is the opposite. He wreaks havoc out there on the floor. He has a great motor. He just plays really hard. He actually has a pretty good feel offensively too for just how to make passes, when to make a play, when to be aggressive, and when to play within the team. Like what I like what I see for sure. Talking about Jace Richardson, or at least Jace Richardson, what he says about his early stance in camp is, I would say my shooting ability when asked about what he feels most excited to showcase for the Magic. I think that's the biggest thing for me. That's where I took a big step, I would say, from high school to college. I'm always looking to shoot, and I'm ready to shoot at all times. Looking forward to just showing that off. Noah Penda, the motor. The motor for Noah Penda has been the calling card for him, dating back even to our conversations around him for Summer League. So the fact that he's continuing to build off that as a guy that obviously already had really strong on-ball chops, had good at basketball IQ, high-level passer, at 6'9", was a wing guy who plays with a lot of energy. And I think it's going to be another one of those interesting fits when you talk about what he can do in transition as a dude who helps push the ball, can grab the ball off the rebound and push the ball forward. I think he's a really interesting fit for this Orlando Magic team when a lot of the conversation around them, we talked about it the other day, Jamal Mosley says we have to focus on pushing tempo. We have to focus on not just being an elite level defense that then comes down and can't convert. We need to be a defense that's top 2 in the league and they can push the ball down other teams' throat and make things happen on the other side of the basketball floor. Noah Penda, I think, with his hustle and energy, especially given the fact that we're going to be without Mo Wagner for most of the season, if not the entirety of the year, has a chance to really carve out a role by being that high energy, high motor guy that can help push pace, help play in transition, and help be a high level like connector for this team. And then for Jace Richardson, the green light to shoot and the focus on wanting to be a high level shooter. Obviously, that's going to be his calling card to getting minutes on the floor. It's not about his ability to shot create on the perimeter as an individual guy. It's not going to be about his ability to pass the ball at any kind of high level. It's going to be based around his ability to shoot the ball at a high clip. If he can be a guy who can come in and knock down three-pointers at a high clip, that's going to earn him minutes early and often. And I hope that that's what happens because I think Jace Richardson deserves real minutes on his team. It's all going to come down to, again, if you use Jet Howard as the litmus test, right? He comes in, he only plays a handful of minutes per game, and when he comes in, he's shooting 32 to 34% from beyond the arc as a guy who was drafted to be a knockdown three-point shooter. That's only going to make it harder for you to earn minutes on the floor, and especially in a competitive backcourt now with Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black, and also Tyus Jones. These minutes are not just going to come, they're not just going to come to you easily. These are minutes that are going to have to be earned in this backcourt. And I think Jace Richardson, with his shooting ability, has the chance to step in and be a guy who earns 15 plus minutes a night as a guy who they just asked to come in and take 6, 7, 8 3-point attempts per game and just say, young fella, chuck that thing. When you get in the game, sprint to the corners. When you get in the game, sprint to the top of the key as many times as you can. Make yourself openly available. Jump off screens. Move like Steph Curry. Move like Damian Lillard. Move like Klay Thompson off ball and just make yourself readily available. We have high level passers like Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner, who if you move off of down screens, you move off of corner double actions, horn sets, we can get you open. We just need you to be confident enough to fire. And I think it sounds like Jace Richardson is open to the idea of not only being that confident, but also confident enough in his shot to be as readily available as the Orlando Magic need him to be. Next up, let's talk about Jalen Suggs. Obviously, we already talked about his injury concerns and whether or not he'd be ready for opening night. And we got yet another update in relation to whether or not he's going to be ready for this tip-off of the NBA season. And so far, it sounds like the optimism continues to lean in favor of him being ready by day one. He says, opening night, that's my goal. My goal was training camp, which I had to let go. A little bittersweet, but I'm really placing it all in God's hands. I'm kind of taking that out of my perspective, out of my psyche, excuse me. I'm taking that out of my control and giving it to him. I'm really approaching every day with the intention to do everything in my power so that I can be available and ready for the boys and the squad come game one. So obviously that would be ideal, but I think the everyday process of coming in here, being on the table, getting my body work done, coming in the weight room and doing everything I can to hit every muscle group. Again, further optimism for Jalen Suggs. Big news, obviously, right? We discussed the news from Jeff Weltman that said basically he feels that Jalen Suggs is on a very strong timetable right now. And Jalen Suggs' initial response was, I feel good about the trajectory I'm on. And it sounds like things are continuing to improve, and now we get more of a definitive date that opening night is the shooting goal here. This is the idea that this guy is taking his time, as he should, but positioning himself to be there for his team day one and set the tone for this Orlando Magic team. Earlier on in the summer, a couple of weeks ago even, I touched on the idea that this Orlando Magic team has a really strong stretch in the first 20 games where they could go 15-5, 16-4, and really put the Eastern Conference on notice early with the fact that their schedule was very favorable against teams that were below 500 or were not real factors in the NBA last year. And that gives them a real chance to set the tone early because they don't play teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers or play teams like the New York Knicks early in the season. Now, they faced those teams a couple of times towards the back end, especially after the All-Star break. But in the beginning of the season, this team has a chance to get off to a hot start. And having Jalen Suggs available for that, it makes it even better because this team can kind of establish the cohesion they desperately need early on so that they're not trying to figure each other out later on in the year. Remember, this team only had their big three of Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero, and Franz Wagner play 7 games together last season. Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner together only played 40 games last season. So that goes to let you know that this team does need to reacclimate themselves, despite the fact that this roster is pretty much the same as it's been the last 2 years outside of the Tyus Jones and Desmond Bane acquisitions. It's still something that these guys, especially now with the newfound expectations, they need to relearn each other and they need to step into this new space that's going to be more offensive centered because this team already knows their identity from a defensive perspective, but they need to now establish this new identity that they're trying to build as a team that plays faster, as a team that wants to be more efficient on offense, a team that wants to be able to build out beyond just give Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner the ball. That's what they're shooting for, and I think, honestly, the health of Jalen Suggs, we all know, is going to be very important, but the more that he can be on the floor for this team this upcoming season, the better. You don't want to rush him back, obviously, right? You don't want to rush him back. In any way, because his presence for the postseason is just as important as anything. This is what you bring in Tyus Jones for. It's what you draft Jace Richardson for. Is to be able to give yourself the alleviated space of knowing, okay, we have somebody in the fray while Jalen Suggs gets himself together. It's why Anthony Black is going to be so important. We're going to talk about him in a second. It's because of things like this. It's because we understand that Jalen Suggs is just that important of a player to this team, but knowing that he has a chance to come back opening night and really set the tone for this team day one, looking forward to it. Last but not least, let's talk about Anthony Black. And it sounds like the Orlando Magic are gassing him up to be more aggressive. And this is going to be the meat and potatoes of the podcast. This is going to be my little mini rant about Anthony Black, a guy that I'm starting to slowly but surely really come around on, because he's a guy that it sounds like the Orlando Magic really want to empower. He's a guy that it sounds like they really are putting faith in to take a step this upcoming season. I think the Orlando Magic are putting a lot of faith in him to make this kind of, big leap in a year where they do have a lot of expectations, and in a year where his play off the bench could be an integral part to this team being so lethal over the course of 82 games, and could even be a really important factor in a given postseason series here and there. And here's what he said about his aggressiveness and assertiveness in year 3. He says, for sure, that's the type of aggressiveness I'm trying to show, talking about being more assertive in practice. He says, I think I can be way more aggressive offensively. And I think that will help the team. I'm trying to do that. On the defensive end, I'm trying to lock in to what the team needs. Being able to guard multiple positions, being able to play with both groups, and ultimately trying to be someone they can throw on the best player of the other team and trust to get a stop. Let's go even further down. Let's talk about what Jamal Mosley has to say about Anthony Black, saying Anthony Black in particular has put a great body of work in to become more physical and become more aggressive. What we're asking for him on the floor is what we've been asking for him, and he's shown the spurts of it. It is to be incredibly defensive minded, to change the game as soon as he steps into the game defensively because of his length, because of his size, and because of his toughness. His ability to play make for others, but then attacking mentality, and just getting downhill and putting pressure on that rim at 6'9" with the speed that he has and ball handling ability he has. To get down the floor and attack the basket, finish, or find teammates, he can be one of the best at it. Let's go even further. Like I said, we're gonna kind of really delve into this. Anthony Black says, one part of my game that I'm looking to showcase is probably just my continued shooting growth. This is important as heck. Being able to shoot in the mid-range, being able to punish smaller defenders and shoot over them, and just continue to make shots from the three-point line, whether that's off the dribble or off the catch in transition, however they might come. Super important. Now, Wendell Carter Jr. caps it off for us in these quotes, saying, when AB is on his game, in my opinion, he's one of the best guards in the league. When he's playing carefree, not saying careless, when he's just flowing and relying on his strengths and getting downhill, getting to the basket, shooting open threes, not turning them down, AB is a tough guard. He's tough to guard for anybody. Anyone else would say that on this team, coaching staff included. When AB is just playing his game, he's very, very hard to guard. Listen to the conversations around Anthony Black. It's so funny because the conversations early on about Anthony Black this training camp sound like a lot of the things that we discussed throughout this summer in relation to the kind of guys I thought, and a lot of Orlando Magic fans in the comment section believed, the Orlando Magic were still missing at that two-guard position. Remember, we had conversations about Malik Monk as an interesting trade target. Victor Oladipo on the free agency market. Russell Westbrook on the free agency market. And the idea around it was we want an athletic guy that has ball handling chops, that's not afraid to shoot the ball, that will push the ball in transition and help be more assertive and aggressive in terms of moving the ball up and down the floor at a high rate and helping this team be faster. And it sounds like rather than going out and trying to go get a guy to bring that kind of mentality to this team, they are empowering Anthony Black to be that guy off the bench for them. What this is indicative of for me is also, he said, I want to be able to be placed on the best perimeter guy defensively. I want to be a guy that can guard some of the best players in the league 1v1. He wants to learn how to guard multiple positions and has played up and down the roster both with the second unit and the starting unit. This tells me that they're going to try to entrust Anthony Black to close games in certain situations. I would not be surprised if this team experiments with certain versatile lineups where Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bane, Anthony Black, Franz Wagner, small ball 5 Paolo Banchero come out on the floor. Smallest guy is Desmond Bane. Weakest link, quote unquote, defensively is a competitive guy like Desmond Bane on the defensive end. And you've got multiple All-NBA caliber defender players in Jalen Suggs and Anthony Black on defense. And you're a jumbo wing heavy, 5-man group that goes out there and just pushes the ball like crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if the set backup lineup is Tyus at the 1, Anthony Black at the 2, Tristan Da Silva at the 3, probably Goga Batazde at your 4 right now, given the fact that Mo Wagner's down. Goga Batazde at your 4, and Jonathan Isaac at your 5, or a version of the team that has Noah Pinda at your 4 and has Jonathan Isaac or Goga Batazde at the 5. In a second unit where Tyus Jones is the setup man and Anthony Black is the rev engine. He is the scoring dynamo. They empower Anthony Black to be this, what typically a 6-man of the year type of candidate is, which is a player that comes off the bench and is a flamethrower offensively and comes in and changes the trajectory of the team offensively while also keeping things afloat by giving them a different look. And in Anthony Black's case, he can be a two-way game wrecker that comes in and guards on the perimeter at a high level, creates steal opportunities, grabs the ball off the brim and pushes the ball up the floor, scores at a high clip. If he's going to be a high-level three-point shooter this year, even an above-average three-point shooter on decent volume this year, that changes how you guard Anthony Black. Wendell Carter said it best. If he's a guy that's playing free and open, he's a tough guard to handle at 6'9". Anthony Black at 6'9" has the chance to maybe even play small forward in certain situations for this team, going back to what I said about a lineup where maybe he plays the 3, Franz Wagner plays the 4, and Paolo Banchero plays small ball 5. Anthony Black's scalability defensively is going to earn him a ton of minutes this year. If he can knock down the 3, it's going to earn him even more. If he can be a guy that can be a lockdown defender on one of the opposing team's best perimeter players, there's a world where they might have to consider a starting lineup that is quote-unquote small ball oriented, where Wendell Carter Jr. comes off the bench for this team because Anthony Black is just that reliable defensively as a guy who can guard up and down the perimeter, up and down the positional scale. If Anthony Black at 6'9" can be that level of defender and shoot 35+% from beyond the arc and have to be respected from out there, paired with Jalen Suggs and Desmond Bane, now you have 3 guys on the perimeter who can all shoot. You have 3 guys on the perimeter who are all going to be highly competitive on the defensive end. And you have 2 real ball handling wings that are high-level passers as well in Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. Anthony Black's ability to be a real two-way menace this year gives him the chance to honestly start. And not start at the point guard or 2 guard position. Again, it feels like those things are pretty solidified. I don't see a world where as long as Jalen Suggs is healthy, he's not the starting guard for this team. Nor do I see what Desmond Bane coming off the bench, given that he is a guy that's supposed to help change the trajectory of this offense. But at 6'9", Anthony Black can be a small forward for this team. Don't be surprised by the concept of that. Anthony Black could earn more minutes on this team simply by being a starting small forward for this team, bumping Franz Wagner down to a small ball 4 and bumping Paolo Banchero to a small ball 5. Don't get me wrong. Will Jamal Mosley lean with that starting 5, 60% of the time? No, I don't think that'll be the way it is. But can I see that kind of unit playing together a good handful of minutes throughout the regular season? Yes. Yes, I can, because I think they want Anthony Black on the floor as much as humanly possible if he's going to be this kind of two-way guy. I am very excited for Anthony Black personally. I think that year 3 is going to be a big jump for him. I think they want it to be a big jump for him. I think they're going to I think they're going to continue to empower him to take said jump. And I'm very excited for what Desmond Bane can do next to a guy like Anthony Black, because he's never had a backcourt mate like Anthony Black and Jalen Suggs defensively. He's always had to be the guy that kind of picks up the slack defensively in the backcourt next to a guy like John Morant, because although he's not an elite level defender, he's at least an above average defender in comparison to John Morant on the perimeter. Now, Desmond Bane has the chance to focus even more on just being an elite level offensive threat for this team on the perimeter because he has guys like Jalen Suggs and Anthony Black who now can take up that defensive responsibility while allowing Desmond Bane to still be an above average defender on a different caliber of perimeter guy. Because instead of having to be the best possible defender on the perimeter against a Steph Curry or a Damian Lillard, now you have Jalen Suggs to be that kind of guy or Anthony Black to be that kind of guy, which gives Desmond Bane the chance to put even more energy into helping boost this team offensively. So Anthony Black's role on this team taking a step in year 3, it's one of the underrated discussions around this team overall of like a squad that can take a huge leap. Yes, their stars are a big part of that. Yes, Desmond Bane is a big contributor to that. Yes, even acquiring Tyus Jones is big, but the internal development of a guy like Anthony Black, it can do so much for the lineup versatility of this team, and I'm looking forward to it in a real way. But you guys let me know in the comment section down below how you guys feel about some of the things that are coming out of Orlando Magic's camp right now. Obviously, they are set to play their first preseason game on Saturday against, it's either Friday or Saturday against the Orlando Magic. So looking forward to that. And just really excited to see this team back on the floor. And these comments coming out of camp, obviously, season hasn't started yet. Not a single dribble has really happened that's meaningful. So, of course, you're always going to hear, high optimism while things are good and while things are steady. But this team, everything about this team in the early going is saying that they are truly poised for a big-time year, and I'm looking forward to it. With that all being said, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that post notification bell. Lock in with us. We are so close to the start of the NBA regular season. I will see you guys next time with another update across the board for our boys. But until then, peace.